We're in the book of Daniel again, second week in the book of Daniel. And just to kind of recap a bit, beginning of the story, the Jews go into exile. They're conquered by this kingdom of Babylon. This is the southern kingdom. And we said this book is about Judah. It's about descendants of David rather than the descendants of Benjamin like Esther is. And as soon as Daniel and his three friends get into this kingdom, they're tested because they want them to eat food that they're not supposed to eat. And they strike a deal with the guy who's in charge. And they're like, well, let's see what happens. Just give us vegetables and water. Let's see what happens. And it turns out that things are great. In the second story, there's a bit of an escalation. When we said there were tests, and I said we should be looking for 3 tests, I said it depends on how you count them. There could be 3, there could be 6. Is the second chapter a test? I don't know, because as it starts, it's really going on between the king and his wise men. You know, it's not Daniel and his friends. And the wise men can't answer the king about what his dream is. And so Daniel, all the wise men get this sentence that they're going to die. And so somebody just shows up at Daniel's door and is like, I'm going to kill you today. But Daniel prays to God. He gets the interpretation of the dream. Is Daniel really tested there? I don't know. But anyway, Daniel gives the king the interpretation of the dream, and then he is elevated. And his friends are elevated because Daniel is elevated. Like Daniel's put in charge of the whole land, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are made administrators of the province of Babylon. Something else we kind of notice about the story, I said it's similar to Esther, but it's different. Esther is like one story beginning to end, right? Let me tell you the story of what happened. This is a bunch of different stories that are all related, and some of them taken out of order, placed in different places for various reasons. So we're gonna get another story here in chapter 3, and this is a famous one. This is the Rakshak and Benny story. King Nebuchadnezzar is going to make an image or a statue 90 feet tall, made out of gold, and he's going to get everyone to come and worship this image. It's going to be some kind of ceremony. We're going to have all kinds of instruments playing, and when you hear all of these instruments playing, you're supposed to bow down. And is that a problem? Oh yeah, that's definitely a problem, right? This is absolutely a problem. Exactly, yeah, and we spent time discussing, like, should Mordecai have bowed to the king? Like, maybe he should have, maybe he shouldn't hear. There's no question at all. No, we cannot bow down to this image. That is very clear in Torah. And so so we're going to have, like, some people are going to point out again, like, remember how that happened in Esther? Mordecai doesn't bow to Haman, and Haman doesn't notice this. Somebody has to come and tell him, like, hey, there's this guy that didn't bow to you later. The same thing's going to happen here. For some reason, like, it's not apparent when all this goes down that they don't bow, but at this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. Somebody's out for them. And so they go to the king and they rat them out. Like, these guys, they didn't bow down to you. So they bring them before the king. The king is furious because they're not in line. Now, why is the king furious? Why is he so mad about this? I mean, that they're not bowing down to this image. Why would that make him angry?
Because it shows his power and control.
Yeah, it's a direct affront to his power. I said to do this, and you're not doing this. And there's a little bit more to this too, because this image, and it's not explicitly laid out like this, but why is the king set up an image? Because he's not asking people to bow down to him, right? He's asking people to bow down to this image. And is this an image of him? It doesn't tell us what the image is, but it doesn't seem like it's him. It's going to kind of imply that it represents their gods, right? There's kind of this idea that, well, this is what we do. This is who we are. As a society, as a kingdom, this image is going to represent our ideals. And if you don't bow down to that, you're not one of us. And I heard a great sermon, and he points out that like we may think this is silly, like, oh, they're bowing down to this image. What is this thing of having a statue? And he points out, in New York City, in the harbor, what do we have? We have a statue, and it's an image that represents our ideals. Our ideals are freedom and justice is what that statue represents. And it's not of any particular person, right? It's just this ideal that we have, and we don't bow down to it, right? But it means something to us. And if someone disgraced that statue, would you be upset? Absolutely, I would be upset if someone disgraced that statue. And so that's really what's going on here. It's the king's power and authority, but it's also like, are you one of us or are you not one of us? We also see this escalation of the conflict. Yeah.
In the paragraph that discusses the rage of King Nebuchadnezzar, verse 13, down in verse 14, he asked them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? So whatever the image was, it does seem it was connected with the worship of their God.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it probably, maybe it was their main god. Maybe it was just like an image to represent all the gods, maybe. And then in his mind, the gods and his power are going to be connected. Sometimes these leaders saw themselves as gods or their power as bestowed upon the gods. Some of them thought that they become gods after they die. But those two things are going to be connected. So anyway, the king's like, hey, you got to get in line. Now, when you hear the sound of all the instruments, and it's got a long list of instruments, and if you bow down, then great. Oh, but if you don't, you're going to be thrown into the blazing furnace. Where does blazing furnace come from? This thing's out in the plains of Dura. They set this thing up. They got a furnace there? Why is there a furnace? Well, that might be what they think of, but how are you going to get the statue unless there's a furnace? How do you make a statue of gold? Well, you melt down the gold and you form it into, so they have a furnace there, right? So they say, no, we can't do that. Now, why can't they do that? Well, Torah tells them they're not supposed to do that. But they've had this experience in the last chapter. Right? Remember what the point of chapter 2 was? Is that Daniel's just there in his house one day. Somebody shows up at his door and is like, I have to kill you because these other people couldn't answer the king's question. Okay, you got to die. And that's the way that things work in this kingdom. Sorry. It doesn't seem like this executioner is like mad at Daniel. Like he's going to grant him a favor. He's like, yeah, I'm kind of on your side here. But sorry, the king said to kill you. I got to kill you. That's just the way things work here. But then the dream that Daniel interprets is a message to him that, look, this king isn't God. He's the king, but his authority comes from Yahweh. Yahweh's the one that's in charge, and he raises up kings and he gets rid of kings whenever he wants. And so that message to them that this guy looks like he's got a lot of power. This king looks like he could off you right now, snuff you out, but he's not in charge. And so their answer is that, look, we're not going to have a debate here. We're not going to explain to you why, but we're not going to bow down. We're not going to do it because the God that we serve, he's God. And he can deliver us from the fire, and he will deliver us from the fire. But even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow down. So the king is furious. He has some of the strongest soldiers of the army tie them up. And it says his command was so urgent that I get this picture that they're running with them, trying to get to this fire that's been heated 7 times its normal hotness. And they're running and they die on the way. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego kind of fall in there from the momentum. And then the king is astonished. He's like, oh, wait a minute. Don't we throw 3 guys in there? There are 4. Are there 4? Yes, king. Yes, 4. Yeah, 4. We put 3 in there. There's 4 now. And they're walking around unharmed, unbound. And the fourth one looks like a son of the gods. Now, we do a lot with that and say, that's the Son of God. That's Jesus. And it might be. It might be Jesus. But coming from his mouth, from Nebuchadnezzar's mouth, he's saying, wait a minute, this looks like either an angel or maybe in their mind like a demigod or something, but someone that doesn't belong here, someone that's not from here. And if you remember, this is a thing that's going to be in the book. When the king had this dream and he's troubled by it, and he goes to the astrologers, and he's like, you got to tell me what the dream is. Now, what do the astrologers say? Like, what is their defense of why they can't do that?
Well, we can't tell you your dream unless you tell us what it is.
Right? They said that, but they said, no, there is someone who could do this. Who could do this?
Daniel.
No. They say, they say the gods, only the gods could do this, but they don't live here. They're not here. Well, guess what's happened here? The son of the gods is here. And we're going to pick this theme up later. It's going to be important next week. But gods don't live here, but there he is. He looks like a son of the gods in there. All right. And so he's like, hey, come out. Come on. He looks over, and it's this crazy picture, like the strongest soldiers in the army, like when they got close to it, they died. But the king's like going over, hey, come on out of there. And then at the end, he makes this decree, like, your God is awesome. Nobody can say anything against your God. If they do, they will be cut into pieces, and their houses will be turned into piles of rubble. Like, that seems to be his thing. That's not the first time we've heard that. I guess that's what happens to people. That's his that's his modus operandi. If he doesn't like you, okay, you cut into pieces, house turned into rubble. All right, and that's that story. It's like I didn't have a whole lot of comments. We got to move on, but I do want to give you all an opportunity. Anybody that sees anything about this, anything that's interesting, questions you have? All right, then we'll move on. Chapter 4, not as well known as chapter 3, but it's great as well. There's going to be another dream. And chapter 4 and chapter 5 are going to go together. Chapter 4, because it's two kings, and it's their downfall. And it's the father and it's the son. And chapter 4 is when Nebuchadnezzar has this dream. It's about a tree, and the birds and the animals are nourished by this tree, but the tree's going to have a downfall. And he has this dream, and then, who's he going to go get? You need a dream interpreted? Daniel. He's our guy. He's our man to interpret the dreams. And so he goes in and gets Daniel, and Daniel's like, and just, only if this dream wasn't about you. Just if this dream could be about your enemies. Daniel's hurt that he understands what this dream is about. And it's that Nebuchadnezzar is going to fall. In fact, he's, let's look at what it says here in verse 15. But let the stump and its roots bound with iron and bronze remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals among the plants of earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal till 7 times have passed by for him. And then what that means is that he's going to go out and live like an animal for 7 years. And then he's going to be restored. In fact, like his hair is going to grow. It's going to be like feathers. He's going to have, his fingernails are going to grow. They're going to be like claws. And we got a lot of animal imagery going on here. A lot of beast imagery going on. And so we got to ask a question, what is this about? If you just step back, you could say, well, Nebuchadnezzar, he's punished, right? Because he's non-humble before God. He's not doing what he's supposed to. And he's had warnings, right? I mean, if this is in the right order, timeline, I mean, he already had a dream that Daniel interpreted. He's already seen what God could do for Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego. Like, he's got messages, right? But he's not going to fall in line. So he gets punished. But God picks a particular way to punish him. Turns him into an animal. What is it trying to say here?
When Nebuchadnezzar was full of pride, he was full of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that he could do anything he set his mind to, simply because he had defeated Israel.
Yeah.
And it gave him a big head.
Yeah.
And the Lord is saying here, okay, you defeated Israel because I sent you against him. I was behind you. You are going to learn who I am.
I think you've hit the theme of this book perfectly. I mean, because it doesn't happen for a year, but when it happens, he's out there on his palace roof looking around, oh, the grandeur, what I've done, everything I've done. And the theme of this book is that God controls what happens. God is the one who's made you king. But there are a lot of ways that God could punish him, right? There's all kinds of them in here. All kinds of them in here. This is a very unique thing. Like, I'm going to turn him into an animal.
The imagery is interesting because we have had the beast show up. We also see that he is making monuments to himself.
Mm-hmm.
He is, so, God's like, he's a national example. If you live like an animal, okay, I'll make you an animal.
If you live like an animal, I'll make you an animal. All right. I got two things I want to get here because, man, that drenched with the dew of heaven. That's very interesting. But before we get to that, we got to go all the way back to the beginning, to the first chapter, to see something that's going on here. Anybody want to read Genesis 1, starting in verse 27? Or actually, start in verse 26. All right.
And then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock, and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them.
All right. That's good. So what have we had here? God created them in his image. They're male and female are in the image of God. And in this chapter, like, what are they supposed to do? What do they do? They rule over the animals. And I'll recall in your mind, like, our next story is going to be in the garden. It's going to be about a beast. And it's going to be about, are you a beast or are you a person? What is the difference between a beast and a person? Well, a beast just follows its instincts and it does whatever it wants to do, but a person can follow the voice of God. In our story here, we've got a lot of things about beasts and about images. And I want to go back and pick something up out of chapter 2 that was easy to miss. Oh, I hope I can find it quickly. Because Daniel's going to say something about the king here. He specifically, anybody want to read Daniel 2, 37 and 38? All right, I got it. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky, wherever they live. He has made you ruler over them, and you are that head of gold. Now wait a minute. And now, that makes sense that he's ruling all the people, right? He's conquered the whole world. All the people are in his kingdom. They're in his reign, what he has dominion over. But Daniel says, you rule over all the animals. In fact, you rule over all of the birds of the sky. How does the king control the birds of the sky? Can the king even it's within his power. If he wants to say all of the wise men are going to die, then all of the wise men are going to die. If he wants to say Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are going into the fire, they're going into the fire. If there's an eagle flying around 300 feet up in the sky, can the king get it? Is it under his rule? Does he have power over that eagle? I don't know, maybe not while it's up there. Maybe he can find out where its nest is and go get it then. But what in the world is it saying? He has dominion over the animals. It's reminding us of the beginning of the story, is what it's doing. We are made in the image of God. And I'll tell you what I think is going on here. In the beginning, God says, we're made in his image. We're all of us are made in his image. And I set you over the plants, and I set you over the animals to have dominion over them. Did he give Adam and Eve dominion over other people? No. And when God set up his people as a kingdom, as a tribe, he seemed to be very reluctant to give them a king. Didn't he? He did not want that. Only when they had pushed him and it became necessary and God said, I have to do this, did he set up a king over them, right? In the beginning, the order is pretty clear. Man has dominion over the animals, but man does not have dominion over man. But God does that later. But he says, look, here's the way it works. I'm going to give you power. I'm going to give certain men power to rule over other men, but it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. And if you're not doing what's right, you're not going to last long. That's the way things work here. This image, why is it so wrong? Like when I ask you all, can Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego bow down to this image? Oh, no. No, that's very clear. You can't do that. What is so wrong with that? What is so wrong with having an image that represents the gods? God said,
Putting another God in God's place.
put another God in God's place. But God has already made an image of himself. We are the image of God. If you want to make an image of God, just do what the Belchers do. Go make another child. You can make an image of God if you want. Be fruitful and multiply, is what God tells them. But not to rule over each other. Here's the order. I rule over man. Man rules over the animals. That's what it's reminding us here. That's why it says that that's why Daniel says King Nebuchadnezzar, who rules over the beast and the birds. That's what he's trying to tell us. And God, by making Nebuchadnezzar a beast, he's reminding him of something. I put you here, I gave you temporary authority to rule over other men. But if you're not going to do that right, you're going to become like a beast. Well, it's a theme in this book. These empires, we're going to find this out next week, they look like beasts. They're not like man, what man is supposed to do, listening to the voice of God. They're like beasts following their own instincts, doing what they want to do because they want to do it. Now, but is God punishing Nebuchadnezzar here? Is he being punished? So I said we got this phrase, this dew of heaven phrase. Now, I'm interested in that. That's interesting. What are we going to do with that if we're interested in that phrase? What are we going to do? Where's that? Where's that in the book? Somebody do it. Somebody do it. You got your phone. Everybody here's got a phone, right? Probably got an app on it with the Bible. You're interested in this, you go and search it and see where it is. Okay? I'll give you a minute to do that, and we'll talk about this. The next story is also going to be about a king that has a downfall. Now he's just going to get killed. He's going to see the writing on the wall with the hand, and like he's done, he's dead. Nebuchadnezzar is going to become a beast for a while, and then he's going to be restored. All right? And does anybody have it? The dew of heaven. Anybody have it yet?
Talking about Daniel telling Nebuchadnezzar that?
No, where that phrase shows up, where it shows up in the Bible. If you search for dew, heaven, somebody did it, right? All right, read that to us. You know, yeah, your phone's recording.
Right, in Genesis 27:28. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May the nation, I'm sorry. And then verse 39. His father Isaac answered him, your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above.
Okay, let me give you the context here. Jacob has just stolen Esau's blessing. It's the whole thing, he puts on the wool on his arms, goes and gets his mom to make the meal that his dad wants, comes in, deceives his father, steals Esau's blessing, and then Esau's like, but isn't there another blessing? Don't you have a blessing for me? Can't you come up with another one? And Isaac's like, I already gave him the blessing. Okay, it's his. I've already made all of his relative servants of him, but here's the blessing I'm going to give to you. And read that blessing part again. It's what he tells Esau.
28. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine.
So, wait a minute. Now that's all right. What verse was that? This is Genesis
27, 28.
Genesis 10, or no? What chapter are we in? 27.
28.
Does he say that to both Jacob and Esau? Yeah, because verse 39. So you said chapter 27,
Verse 28
verse 28.
and verse 39.
Oh, it's in both of them. I didn't even see that. So when he's blessing Jacob, he says, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness. So God's going to give, in this good blessing, God's going to give him heaven's dew and earth's richness. In the second blessing that's left over for Esau, he says, your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven. Is the dew of heaven good or bad? The dew of heaven is awesome. That's the good blessing. That's what you want. It's exactly what you want. Nebuchadnezzar, what is he getting? He's getting drenched with the dew of heaven. Drenched with it. Is this good or is this bad? This is awesome. I'm going to take you and put you, you're going to live among the plants and the animals. What does that remind you of? You're going to the Garden of Eden. I'm gonna fix you, Nebuchadnezzar. You're being humbled, yes. You're going to be given the mind of a beast, but when the time has passed, when it's been long enough, and the second part of this, I didn't read the rest of Esau's blessing. You will serve your brothers, but when you have grown tired, you will throw off the yoke. You're going to be there for a while. You're going to be a slave to this animal mind for a while, Nebuchadnezzar, but in time, you will throw it off. In time, you're coming back. Now that's contrasted with the story with Belshazzar. It's also somewhat famous, not as famous as Rack, Shack, and Benny, but we got the disembodied hand, right? In fact, it says the finger. I'm going to give you a little more time. Search finger in your app. So Belshazzar, who's Nebuchadnezzar's son, he's going to go and he's going to get the things they stole, the plates, the goblets, the silverware that they stole out of the temple of God. They're going to have a party with it. They're going to drink wine from it. While this is happening, it says, the fingers of a hand come and they write this phrase on the wall. And it says they see this disembodied hand. And what does that mean? Do you have it yet? The first place that finger shows up?
Genesis 41:42.
Yeah, read that verse.
Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of the fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck.
All right, so Joseph is becoming ruler. Authority is being transferred. That's what the finger does. The finger and the ring on the finger can transfer authority. Isn't that what this book is about? Next time it's going to show up, read the second verse where it shows up, if you have that.
Exodus 8:19.
Yeah.
The magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not listen, just as the Lord had said.
Okay, first couple of plagues. Remember, they replicate these plagues. Turn water into blood. We can turn water into blood. We can do that. We can make frogs come. But when the gnats come, this is the finger of God. That's what the finger of God does. It can transfer power, but it can bring judgment. And then I believe the next place it shows up, the finger of God writes the 10 Commandments on the stone. The finger of God writes the laws that this earth goes by. It's in the book. You all, it's in the book. This isn't just like, ooh, spooky, disembodied hand writing on the wall. It is spooky, by the way. It freaked them out. They're terrified of this disembodied hand. But the Bible is trying to tell us things with this. It's there if we will just go look. We will see why it's there. These two stories are contrasted. Nebuchadnezzar is getting drenched by the dew of heaven. He's going to live in the garden because he's got to be fixed. He's going to be restored. But Belshazzar, no. And the story is beautiful. If you look at the way Daniel reacts to these two things, how does Daniel react to the first king? He's like, no, I didn't want this. If only this dream wasn't about you. I'm sorry, but bad things are coming your way. Now, when Belshazzar comes, like he has this dream, nobody can interpret it, and they're like, oh, wait, we know this guy. He interpreted dreams for your father. And so they bring him in, and Belshazzar is like, I'll put a gold chain around your neck. I'll make you the third highest in the land. And what does Daniel say?
Just keep it.
He says, keep it. I don't want your stuff. You're going to die anyway. Daniel doesn't seem to like Belshazzar. And so he's going to fall. And so we get this contrast. Who has decided that Nebuchadnezzar is getting the dew of heaven and that Belshazzar is going to be assassinated? Who's decided that? God has decided that. Reminds me of Abraham. He goes and he pleads for Sodom. And we have seen at that point that God is a God of mercy. God is the God who makes the blood pact covenant with Abraham that says, when you mess up, I will take the consequences for you. I'll fix it when you mess up. But Abraham pleads for Sodom and Gomorrah, and God says, no, they got to go. God is the one who gets to decide. God knows that Nebuchadnezzar will repent. God says in the prophecy, you're going to be restored. I'm going to do this, and you're going to get restored. You're coming back. But he knows that's not what's happening with Belshazzar. This guy, not going to repent, not going to be what I need a leader to be. And so he's gone. We're not going to get to 6. But questions, comments. Things you see? All right, next week, I guess we're going to skip 6 because we got to do 7. We got another weird dream coming. If you want to know what these prophecies are about, come back next week because that's what we're going to talk about.